I always mark my videos not for kids, but this video is seriously not for kids, so if you still want your innocence intact, please click away. That includes my friends too, and obviously spoilers, so I've stated my warnings. That means nobody can get mad at me. Let's begin. I was kind of debating talking about this series because it's pretty old news, but you know what? I love being late to things anyways, and this story is timeless, so f*** you. And yes, it is another speed paint video. I'm lazy, I'm sorry. If you don't know what KillingStalking is, then why are you watching this video? Kidding. But honestly, you've probably heard of it somewhere. It's very famous for being a very strange yaoi. Yaoi in very huge quotes. I read this manhwa a couple years ago when I was really into Webtoon, but I wanted something more. Something that would make my stomach churn. So I found this series called KillingStalking, and it rose in popularity in 2020 on anime TikTok. I think it's always been popular since it came out, but that's when I really saw so many people talking, posting, and cosplaying the series. I'm actually currently rereading it, and I wanted to discuss my opinions as I go forth. When I first read this comic, I was way too young to understand the symbolism and got manipulated right alongside Yoonbum, the main character. Like, I was literally rooting for the antagonist and got upset when the cop character was about to catch the literal murderer because of how well the dialogue plays out. Apparently, I wasn't the only one, considering the concerning amount of people who think this story is a romance, but it is far from it. I feel as though I've been through a lot of growth in 2020 since it was, oh my god, 4 years ago. That does not seem right, but moving on. TLDR, KillingStalking is about an obsessive, creepy, middle-aged man, Yoonbum, and yes, he is middle-aged despite what he's drawn like, stalking and breaking into his 20-year-old crush's house. But it turns out his crush, Sang-woo, is a serial killer, sadistic psychopath, and they go through a bunch of ups and downs on whether Sang-woo is going to kill him or not, and whether Yoonbum wants to escape from him or not. It turns into a real Stockholm Syndrome scenario in the most gruesome and sad way. Sang-woo manipulates Yoonbum into murdering someone. There's an obsessive cop, I'm gonna butcher this so bad, Sung-bae, that's trying to put Sang-woo in jail due to a gut feeling, despite all the other cops and general public loving Sang-woo. The comic goes into deeper lore with the three characters with their upbringing, abuse, and their mental illnesses. Ultimately, Sang-woo dies in a fire, Yoonbum is assumed to be hit by a car, but that's up to interpretation, and Sung-bae is somewhere doing cop work, I don't know. That's just the conclusion. What I wanted to talk about was the psychological aspect of this comic, which everybody does when talking about this series. However, I actually wanted to go over the misconceptions of this series and just the romanticization of mental illnesses with not only this story but just real people as well. So to just start off with the characters, I'm not sure if it was confirmed by the author Kugi, but it's very obvious that Yoonbum has borderline personality disorder and maybe even obsessive compulsive disorder. Yoonbum is a direct link to the word stalking in the title because he is quite literally a stalker. He is absolutely infatuated with Sang-woo, and as we see in flashbacks, he always just gets obsessed with people who are just kind to him. Like, I feel like whenever people talk about this story, they miss that part. Yoonbum is also an awful human being. Yes, he is a victim in Sang-woo's case, but the whole point of the series is that everyone in the series would be a nightmare to be around in real life. Yoonbum is not a fucking baby. He's a middle-aged man who creeps, guilt trips, and takes advantage of others in his life as well. In a comic, amazing. I love to see it, but it's just so frustrating when people romanticize the shit out of this manga when you're supposed to hate and yet at the same time feel bad for everybody. Sang-woo is also a victim from both of his parents. He fucking sucks. He's a murderer, a serial abuser, but people love him because they find him attractive. Doesn't that sound familiar? We don't really have any backstory on Sang-woo's parents like how they did in BoJack Horseman, so we don't really know if it's generational trauma, but it's just supposed to be like a little look into Sang-woo's past. Kungi actually says that Sang-woo's mother specifically was always supposed to be someone that you couldn't understand. The flashbacks of her and Sang-woo's dad is just supposed to be basically explain why he's the way that he is. It's told in the eyes of Sang-woo, and he never really gets the answer of why she's the way she is either, besides the domestic abuse in the relationship that she has with her husband, and then begins to sexually abuse Sang-woo as a sick and twisted coping mechanism. I've seen people theorize that Sang-woo's mom loves being the one that Sang-woo loves, that he is supposed to be her escapism by abusing her son and taking advantage of him. She tricks him into watching her and her dad have intercourse, very obviously trying to make his son jealous. It fucking works wonders because he loves his mom to death. Literally, that's how Yoonbum is kept alive, only because he reminds him of his mother. Yoonbum is older and has black hair. People romanticize their relationship all the time. But Sang-woo says in the comic that he isn't gay. Kungi even restated it in a Q&A. Sang-woo puts Yoonbum in his mother's clothes because he sees his mother and Yoonbum. He doesn't love Yoonbum. Even when he's being kind to him, he chants to himself that he's not like his dad. He's not as bad as his dad. Later we get into our first dream chapter, or maybe it's just supposed to be like a non-canon chapter since it's only half a chapter and not a full numbered one. But I think it was really interesting, and I actually wanted to spend more time talking about this chapter since I haven't really seen anyone do it like a deep dive on this one specifically. It's mostly just a recap of how Yoonbum feels and how far he's come since he's wearing his own clothes in this, because he hasn't done that since the beginning of the series. Yoonbum goes down some stairs and he finds himself stuck in a maze, rotting building with moldy brown walls. This is supposed to depict his mental state and how he feels, like going down the stairs represents going deep within his mind. He goes down a path, meaning that he's making a conscious choice to go forward. He gets a call from someone saying to go towards the piano music, but then he gets another call telling him to turn around, go back from where he came, but he says, I can't remember. So he hears the piano music and goes towards it since he doesn't want to be alone. Him running in desperation to not be alone mirrors his obsessive behaviors of stalking people he likes because he desperately needs someone. He comes across a door he can't get in and begs for someone to open the door for him. But oh wait, he has a key. So he opens that door himself. I'm a bit torn on this metaphor. I think it means that he was in charge of his own actions, like a direct reference to the beginning of the comic when he opens Sang-woo's door. He made that conscious decision to break into his house. He opens the door, he must go in. Oh, but it's not what he thought it would be. It's a radio playing a piano. A disappointing lie. He's still alone, but in a different place now. Kind of like when he goes into the basement and finds a tied up girl, something he didn't expect, and he's in a place he wants to be, as in Sang-woo's house, but he's still alone. There's a blackout, and now he's somewhere new. He can only go forward and he can never go back. Similarly, how he can never go back to the life he once had, whether he wants to or not. This is actually the part where I become confused as it goes on, but I think I have it. He walks past a painting frame. As he walks by, a colorful, beautiful painting shows up. It's a single painting in this dark, cold building, and it only shows up when he's walked past it. If you have another interpretation, let me know, but I think it might mean the good parts of his life are behind him, but he doesn't realize that because he doesn't ever turn around. He only goes forward. He goes past a fat, tall man behind some bars. The hallways are shown to be very thin since Yoonbum is a very skinny person, so he can't really get away from this thing if he wants to interact with it. So I think this person is supposed to represent his grandma. When Yoonbum tells Sang-woo and us more of his life with his uncle before he met Sang-woo, his uncle used to beat and abuse him while his grandma simply ignored him, which is why the man has his eyes gone. His fingers are gone as well, and aggressively tells Boom to give him the ticket he's holding. His grandma wasn't a very kind or caring person. She was more caring than his uncle, obviously, but she was still also abusive, and so that's why I believe his grandma is a fat, tall man, an authority figure that he can't really talk back to, but is also a victim of her own actions. I don't know why he sniffs the ticket. We're just gonna move past that. Yoonbum passes an entrance gate. Sorry, I don't know what those things are called. And on the walls are framed art/pictures of various women. He sees the biggest piece is a picture of the girl Min-jin, the girl that Yoonbum killed. He reads a label that credits him as the artist. When he looks back up, she's covered in blood and her eyes are blacked out. Then the panel goes back over to the other art pieces, now also being covered in blood. This is obviously a direct correlation to Yoonbum's guilt for killing her, but I also have another theory, a game theory if you will, that the other paintings in the surrounding are Yoonbum's influence of having multiple dead people around him because of Sang-woo. This is the only girl that he killed, but it holds the most weight and meaning to him despite there being more dead people around him. The dialogue to me gets a little bit weird, and I'm unsure if he's saying it or if it's just what he's hearing, and I'm unsure what it's referencing to, but as he's running away, tons of people run past him clamoring about a movie that's about to start. I love that Ford plug too, even though it's not Korean, I don't know why that's there. Anyways, he goes in, sits down, and when the movie starts, it begins to show core memories of what's happened in Yoonbum's life. YouTube, if you're watching, he is praying about grapes. Everyone in the audience begins to eerily laugh. Yoonbum tries to turn it off but cuts himself in the process. When he exclaims his pain, everyone that was laughing suddenly looks at him, which then he freaks out and then sits outside of the showing. It references how Yoonbum felt when he spilled his trauma with his previous home life, and Sang-woo dismisses all of it and does his classic move of victim blaming. Yoonbum freaks out from Sang-woo's reaction and cuts himself with a knife, making him faint. Yoonbum is sitting in a fetal position when a child in an oversized suit tugs on his arm, but the person guiding the child pulls him away, leaving his hat behind with Yoonbum. This is referring to Sungbae trying to help Yoonbum because he's the only person that recognizes that he's a victim. However, his higher-ups at the police station don't trust or believe him, leaving him with very few options to help Yoonbum. Yoonbum becomes alone once again. He sees the hat the child left behind, and in it is a gun taped to the top. A little clown toy sits at his feet. He gets a little freaked by the toy and looks up to find a clown looking at him from around the corner. Yoonbum scurries to pick up the hat and once again hears the piano music. He runs through the theater and goes through the exit by the screen to see a painting that jump scares him. The picture is blurred and hard to make out, but it seems to have the same distinctive features as Sang-woo's mother, but to Yoonbum, an unfamiliar face. He continues running and then he hears Sang-woo's voice. He desperately runs to it, but once again is tricked by another machine and has trapped himself in a dead end, with the only way out blocked by the clown. Yoonbum screams and cries out for him to stay back and tries to shoot him, but the gun doesn't have any bullets. He cowers in fears as he grips to the table holding the record machine and begs for it all to stop. However, he hears Sang-woo's voice yet again behind him, where the clown was, signifying that Yoonbum's soulless is also his abuser. This story goes above and beyond for its characters. It does make me sad that a lot of people rooted for Sang-woo, including me, because of how good his manipulation was. Sang-woo is capable of being nice, and that hope is what us as the readers hope for as well. That's what being part of an abusive relationship is like. In my criminal justice class, my teacher, who was an ex-cop, said the biggest factor they had to worry about when investigating domestic abuse was the partner. The person who is the victim. Because when you're in an abusive relationship with someone who is so hot and cold, you know there's a good person in them because you see it in them and you feel like you're the only person who could possibly understand them. And back when I believed in Sang-woo, that was a really hard reality to accept because of how he acted, but it's plain and simple. KillingStalking is such a misunderstood masterpiece. Well, I shouldn't say misunderstood because there are plenty of people who understand the story. This story is supposed to question your morals. Everybody in this story sucks, so bad things happen to them. Do they deserve to be saved or excused because they've had bad things happen to them? Then the people that I've seen who are fans of the story are like, oh my god, Sang-woo and Yoonbum are a match made in heaven! Even though, to the end, Sang-woo was always meant to kill him. This story was never a yaoi, and Koongi said the audience saying that felt disrespectful to her work. I know the series is done, and it's been finished for years, but I can't help it. It's such an amazing read that you discover something new every single time you read it. It's obvious that Koongi loved this series and poured her heart and soul into it. People say the ending was rushed, but honestly, I actually really liked it. A story like this wouldn't have a satisfying conclusion. Sang-woo and Yoonbum's relationship would have just kept on going in the same vicious cycle of trauma bonding and both of them becoming more and more insane while repeating their same mistakes. So I think it was a perfect conclusion and fills in all the holes that she's been leaving for us throughout the series. I'm also so thankful that Yoonbum got some very needed therapy, but again, that's just me. I rant about the story for way too long, and I don't want this video to be an hour long because I think I would actually unalive myself. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. But also, I could rant about this story for hours, and I haven't even finished rereading it. Hey, Editing Maymay here. I've finished it. And the ending is a little obscure about like if Sang-woo and Yoonbum actually like loved each other because Sang-woo was like calling out to Yoonbum's name. But maybe that's just wishful thinking for just us as the readers and Koongi trying to like mislead us. But anyways, like back to that. But I don't know how this video is going to be received, so I guess I'll just hold off on it. So therefore, that's all for now. Laters. God, I need to poop.